In a world where Carolina Panthers fans have an insatiable thirst for Panthers news and opinions, only one podcast roars ferociously. It's the C3 Panthers Podcast.
Cody. When I thought things couldn't get worse, to add injury to insult, today news just about an hour ago broke that Christian McCaffrey will be placed on injured reserve, effectively ending his 2021 season with just 7 games played. A lot of that looking from the sidelines with a hamstring injury. Now there's an ankle injury. Last year missed nearly the entire season due to injury, shoulder injury last year. Christian McCaffrey will not be playing with the Carolina Panthers in this brutal stretch. And I got to ask you, did Christian McCaffrey just say, I don't want to watch it or be a part of it? Put me on injured reserve, baby, and get me out of this hellhole that is the Carolina Panthers franchise at this moment.
No, I mean, listen, if, longtime fans of the C3 podcast probably already know my opinions relating to Christian McCaffrey. So let me just start by saying this. I really feel bad for the kid, man. I genuinely do. I mean, when healthy, there isn't a running back I would rather have than Christian McCaffrey for what he does on and off the football field. He's an incredible guy, incredible football player. But I think his body is just it's failing him in a way that he has no control over. It seems now to be an ankle. Apparently, Matt Rule said it swelled up really bad last night and got a lot worse overnight. And he wants to be out there playing football, and it's got to eat him up on the inside. It does. But I just think that at the end of the day, this is another example of a very concerning tendency that rears its ugly head once again for McCaffrey, and that's this injury bug and him not being able to consistently stay healthy for the entire length of an NFL season. And I hate to be that guy to say I told you so, but this is the reason why you don't typically pay running backs these big, ginormous contracts, because over the long haul, their bodies just can't hold up to it very well, Tony.
This is now I saw this first reported by Ian Rappaport on Twitter, posted at 1:44 p.m. Christian McCaffrey out for the season on CarolinaPanthers.com. An ankle injury. This is just a report, no byline. An ankle injury suffered in Sunday's loss at Miami will cost Panthers running back Christian McCaffrey the rest of the season. An MRI on Monday revealed an injury severe enough to place him on injured reserve. Because of the time it would take to recover and because it will be his second time on injured reserve this season, the news means McCaffrey will miss out on the Panthers' final 5 regular season games after the bye week. Now, to kind of just elaborate on some of the language of this, Cody, an MRI on Monday morning revealed that the injury was severe enough. Now, what does that language mean? Does that mean that it's a severe injury? Does that mean it's an ankle sprain that could bother him for the rest of the season if he played through it? Is that an ankle injury that would cause him to miss a few games? Interestingly, though, the Panthers are going into a bye week, Cody, and when it comes to that, there was time to rest up and to heal them. In some ways, to me, this is an admission that the rest of the season is meaningless for the Carolina Panthers. There's no reason to bring him back, and which is strange to say because he is the reason you could win with a Cam Newton team and a team that you've cobbled together in the face of some adversity and failed plans this season. I think this is more about the statement of the state of the Carolina Panthers than the real severity of his injury, maybe.
Well, I mean, you mentioned it last night. If they saw something that happened, if the swelling got so bad and the MRI revealed so much damage that even going into a bye, knowing we have a good amount of time for him to be able to rest and heal up his body, that they just decided to pull the plug on his entire season, it makes me think that this is a really bad injury for Christian McCaffrey. And Matt Rule said in his press conference earlier today that, it's rare to have a whole stretch of games right at the end, or it's important to have a whole stretch of games right at the end where you're playing division rivals, because it's so important for the division. And as I said to you in the post-game show, mathematically, the Carolina Panthers are still alive in the playoff race. So for them to just decide that in this tough stretch of football, when you have Cam Newton, now there's other questions about the offense, about receivers not separating, Cam Newton inaccuracies. Then it was also reported that Sam Darnold was throwing at practice today, which is quite scary in and of itself. It really baffles me why they would make this decision right now unless it was really, really bad. And I kind of think it was.
I'm of the opposite opinion right here, is that I think it is a real ankle injury. He probably has a sprained ankle. You're probably talking 2 to 3 weeks on a good timetable for a lower ankle injury, 4 to 6 weeks on a bad timetable on a high ankle sprain. Last night, they did say that they did not think it was a serious high ankle sprain. And to come out and tell me that he experienced swelling overnight is not surprising. That's the least surprising thing. That's what happens overnight when you suffer some sort of trauma to the body. But for me, I think this is that, like, right now, the Panthers are in such dire straits, such despair, is that they don't even think having Christian McCaffrey on the back end is really going to fix it. And that's why it's like, hey, what are we going to rush him back for, or really try to push it in 2 weeks? Or when we come back from the bye, he probably won't even be ready then. He'll probably need to miss that game, maybe even one more. And that just gives us 3 games at the end of the season under the best case scenario, to where, guess what? At that point, it's too little, too late. How are you going to win in the meantime? I saw the press conference for Matt Rule today. It looked like a man who was resolved that this is the way it is. Now, this was before the news of Christian McCaffrey had broke. He was getting seen by the doctors and doing more MRI as Matt Rule was doing an uncharacteristically early press conference. I feel like, good gosh, it was at like 8:45 this morning.
Yeah, I noticed that. I took note of that as well early this morning.
So I was surprised to see it up when I got to work, and I peeked at it later on. But I felt, and this was before the Christian McCaffrey news broke, I felt like it was just a man that was resolved that this team is flawed. And I didn't know, really, I didn't think that he saw an end in sight and it getting fixed. I didn't think that he was ready to try to give magical answers of how to fix it, nor just even coach plot, like whatever they call them, like when you say the same thing, like iterism, like cliches. Yeah. He's not even giving coach cliches about to fix it. It just seemed like a come to Jesus moment, a realism, a just, matter of the fact is, sadly, this is the state of the team, and it probably won't get much better, and hopefully you can keep it from getting much worse. But without Christian McCaffrey, I don't know how it could get better. Do you remember at one point you said this, is that maybe Christian McCaffrey could be a blessing in disguise, missing for Sam Darnold and for Joe Brady, because they might be kind of forced to push the limits of their comfortability, or get into a rhythm, or maybe even gain some confidence in themselves. Right now, I just don't know how a struggling play caller with a quarterback who he doesn't know who the quarterback is on a team that can't really do anything all that well. I don't see how this could be a good sign for their future prospects this season.
Yeah, no one really has faith in the Carolina Panthers right now. And you really shouldn't when you listen to Matt Rule talk out of both sides of his mouth. I mean, in the press conference today, he's saying, certainly we don't We know that the quarterback can't play good football when his protection doesn't hold up for him. Yet at the same time, you expect him to elevate those around him. Well, which one is it, Matt Rule? Is it both of them? And it goes back to this Christian McCaffrey being such a large part of our offense. Now, again, if Christian McCaffrey is a player that is healthy, and we're not talking about him being on IR all the time, of course you build your offensive playbook around him. He's one of the most dynamic offensive weapons in the NFL. But whenever Christian McCaffrey leaves your lineup and then the entirety of your offense falls off a cliff, you have no red zone offense. You're averaging poor yardage per play. Everything goes absolutely downhill. And then that's not to speak of, he's a good pass blocker as well. And when you have a faltering offensive line, you want Christian McCaffrey to be next to you. So now, at a time when our offense is already so bad, our offensive line gave one of its worst performances against the Miami Dolphins, which weren't some vaunted mega pass rushing defense. Now you take Christian McCaffrey out of that equation. The Carolina Panthers, and especially this offense, they look to be sinking very fast.
It's crazy how bad it got in what seems like so quickly. In one hand, this seems like it's been forever. Like this season already feels to me, and we haven't even we're in the bye week, basically, after yesterday. It feels like a terribly long season. Like it's just been a brutal emotional stretch of differing and same storylines. But on the other hand, Matt Rule's first year as a head coach was last year. Panthers had a relatively decent showing for a first-year head coach with a lot of changes on the field from top to bottom. But that all of a sudden, that year one success, maybe, and I use that term semi-lightly, I guess, it feels like a million years away at the same time.
Yeah.
But this season has just droned on to where it feels like it's like we're in the opposite of dog years.
Yeah. And, especially that Super Bowl season, it seems so far away now. It's like a far-flung era of
I know. It's like
forgotten football. But I think what's so disappointing, Tony, is that we felt like we were on the cusp of something brand new fairly recently. Just 2 years ago, Matt Rule was in his first year as a head coach. We had an all-defensive draft. We looked like we're moving in the right direction, but it's unexplainable why this team has just done an outright backslide and why they have let the offensive line and the quarterback position get so bad to the point that everything else around it is failing and breaking because of it. I almost am happy for Christian that now his body doesn't have to take the punishment of floating this putrid offense anymore this season.
Well, I think that's why they did this. I think they did that last year, and I think they're doing it again this year. Is that winning out at this point seems unrealistic, right? And forcing the issue to win one game, two at most, maybe even none, and forcing the issue with Christian McCaffrey, who you are financially invested for the next several years, that seems like a poor use of your resources. That, in some ways, I think putting Christian McCaffrey on IR today is like a very similar to the Panthers saying, you know what, we're down 37 in a game, 30 in a game. There's only 6 minutes left. No, don't run him out there. What's he gonna do? Okay, we might score a touchdown, but guess what? Still a lost game. This season, to me, this is a statement of a lost season, which has been so strange because 2 weeks ago, beating Arizona, bringing in Cam Newton, this team and the actions from the front office have indicated us that they weren't content with seeing it as it is. That realization seemingly has sunk into them, Cody.
Yeah, I think it has. It certainly plays a part. And again, man, I want to reiterate where I started off. I feel bad for Christian. One of the things I said on this podcast before, Tony, is you're not injury prone until you are. Once upon a time, early in Cam Newton's career, this is the guy that flipped a truck before a football game and still managed to play. I mean, he was seemingly made of iron until later in the career, the injury bug caught up to him, and it seemed like he just couldn't get away from it. And the same thing happened with Greg Olsen, Luke Kuechly. You're not injury prone until you are. And I think that sadly enough, it's hit Christian McCaffrey early. I think this has also kind of been true of Saquon Barkley in the NFL, who's been plagued by the injury bug. And I don't know, the NFL, she's a cruel mother, man. And she takes her sacrifices yearly of the biggest stars. And you hate it because, I mean, even in spite of Cam Newton's return, Christian McCaffrey was such a big part of this offense that, yeah, you can argue that this is losing our biggest superstar. Because really, how many people are even expecting too much of Cam now? It's like he was trying to save this thing when he came into it. But if it was with Cam or Sam Darnold or PJ Walker, it was going to be Christian McCaffrey's offense. And before we go any further, Tony, I want to read his final 2021 stats. In 7 games, Christian McCaffrey had 99 carries for 442 yards, 4.5 yards per catch, 1 rushing touchdown, 37 receptions, 343 yards, 1 receiving touchdown, which is surprising. His contract cap hit moving forward in 2022 will be $14.3 million. In 2023, it bumps up to $17.7 million, another $17.7 for 2024, and $13.6 million for 2025. Yikes.
I'm going to show you something on this is going to make you sad. Tell the audience a little bit about your theory, not your theory, just the data of why paying a running back at that position contractually is an unwise, potentially way of building a team.
So, one, it's inevitable that the running back position is just replaceable. Time and time again, we see 5th round, 6th round, 7th round to undrafted free agent running backs come in the NFL and have a great deal of success fairly early in their career. So not only do they come to the draft, but for reasons that we're looking at right now, I mean, when you look at guys like Derrick Henry and Alvin Kamara and Christian McCaffrey, who have missed a significant amount of playing time this season by the very nature of playing running back in the NFL. It is the most strenuous. Running backs have also never been asked to do more than they are being asked of right now. They're being asked to pass protect, run through the gaps, bounce it to the outside. Oh, and also you might have to kick out to receiver and run some routes downfield. So when you're asking running backs to do so much, inevitably it takes a toll on their bodies. And you end up running into problems like these where you're paying a lot of money for, albeit, yes, very talented football players, but very talented football players that might not be able to take the field on Sunday for you.
This is an article that was published in September by Jason Fitzgerald. He's the owner, facilitator of overthecap.com. Really the best, in my opinion, the best, contract and salary cap website out there. He's come on the show before, and I kind of, he's the guy to follow because he offers so much good interpretation of this. He put up a article after Christian McCaffrey was injured in the Houston game running back performance following a contract extension. And what he says is he's looking at guys who signed an extension for extra years, and in a contract extension, he denotes as when a team owns the rights to a player through his rookie contract or for one or more seasons, and then they extend him while they own the rights. Generally, he says this means the player is younger than a typical free agent, should be more productive. It also generally means the player is more expensive, as players who sign extension often get the largest annual contract values and guaranteed salaries. He went and did this study, Cody, where he looked at, and this was, by the way, in September, where he looked at every player to sign an extension. And I tell you, this is what is interesting about this is this visual aid, this chart right here. And just to explain it to you is the vertical axis, the x-axis. I think that's the x-axis. I'm pretty sure it is. Says his production at the time he signed the contract. The y-axis shows his production as like after the extension. So this is in the immediate time, I think, and the size of the bubble indicates how much the contract was for. So he's got the biggest bubble up here. So just remember that. Biggest bubble. But I know, man, look at how big Ty Gurley's is. The point being is that he says this is that only 10 out of 30 players improved. So you signed him like you saw what the max of what it could be, right? And that was an amazing 2,000-yard season. Two players in the history of since 2010 have improved. Two of those players, David Johnson and Deion Lewis, basically did not play the year before, so they immediately skew the numbers. Now, what he goes on to say is some of the players would still be here it is. 8 players improved from prior to contract signing to a new contract. 3 of those were Johnson, Mostert, Lewis, blah, 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 blah. He says, but that leaves the other, what did he say, 22 players that went down. He goes on to say, I know we all say it won't happen to our guy when he gets signed, but thus far there have been very few instances where waiting to sign a player would have cost the team other than the headache of dealing with the contract issue. Maybe Kamara, Cook, Chubb will be the players to break the cycle, but thus far there is little reason to think the extension is in any way a good idea.
Yeah, that's very, very good information there. Fantastic.
So, we saw the peak of what the Christian McCaffrey could be. Like, I mean, it would be almost silly to think you could get much more out of it. Yeah. Right. And then on top of that, you owned him at the time.
Yeah, you had no need to extend him. I remember there were some rumors that maybe he might have wanted to hold out for a new contract if that's something the Panthers weren't willing to do. And also, Tony, I think we have to continue to put ourselves back in the mindset of David Tepper when it happened. There was no more Cam Newton, no more Luke Kuechly, no more Greg Olsen, no more Julius Peppers. Many of these Panthers stalwart players were out the door. And at Christian McCaffrey coming off of this incredible 1,000-yard receiving, 1,000-yard rushing season, I mean, one of the all-time great running back seasons in NFL history. I mean, it seemed like a no-brainer to pay Christian McCaffrey. But at the same time, looking back a little further into Panthers history, we thought that this next regime change with Tepper and Matt Rule and then eventually Scott Fitterer would be different than what all the sins that the Panthers have committed in its past, where once upon a time we were overpaying running backs, where Marty Herney famously paid Jonathan Stewart and D'Angelo Williams a bunch of money. And then we're hoping that we were able to overcome some of those things and get better from those tendencies that overall, while they might have been good in the moment, held back our football team. And now here we are again saddled with another really good player on a really bad contract who cannot stay healthy.
I think this was ultimately the best move that you could have. I think sadly it comes a few weeks too late. And what I know is that he was not injured last week. In fact, we were celebrating the fact that he finished the 2 games without re-injuring that hamstring. But the Carolina Panthers, after they announced that Sam Darnold will be going to injured reserve, it really seemed like we're dead in the water. And I almost was content at 4 games into the season, or resolved to understand that. That the fact is that we could be eligible for a top 5 draft pick going forward, because with the way the team looked after that New England game, it seemed unlikely they could win any games going forward. There was the small bit of hope that was given by winning on the road against the Arizona Cardinals. Despite some of the challenges Cardinals faced, we faced our own challenges with PJ Walker and this ultimate injection of quick excitement. It was like a steroid injection. In fact, it's very much like a steroid injection where it hits hard, but wears off fast. Cam Newton comes to town, and there was a thought that maybe this Panthers team was a signal from them that they weren't as bad as I thought they were the week before. And I was there, man. I was in a dark place.
Yeah.
So I tried to have some modicum of at least listening to you guys who were saying there is and Matt Rule was this guy, right? Hey, we're in middle of the pack. Everybody's got a losing record. We got a good defense. We think we can win now with this defense. We just got to get this offense back to life. So I was going to give it a chance. And the Washington football team was an opportunity for us to win and catch some momentum, Cody, and we missed that opportunity. Last week was just a kick in the stomach, a beatdown that kind of showed that we were past our prime, at least. And then this news right here really brings me back 2 weeks. But the problem is we've won a game in the midst of that, Cody. And I don't know,
against one of the best teams in the NFC, no less.
Right. But I don't know, is that now? Well, the worst thing is winning another game at this point. But this is going to put us in that 7th pick spot, right? Aren't we going to be right where we were last year? It's pick 7.
Well, and Tony, don't you think it would be just like the Carolina Panthers to win a game that they're not supposed to win, just to further ruin our draft spot and make sure
Tampa's
that
sitting everybody. What if Tampa's sitting everybody in week 17?
Yeah, so if we're winning a meaningless football game that only hurts our draft pick. Again,
the Saints lose to us on purpose. Didn't they do that to us last year?
Well, they were resting their starters in 2000, I believe it was.
What was that?
I think 2018,
19,
somewhere 18, it was 2000, because I was at the one the last time that we ended with the Saints at the stadium. That was 2019, so I think it was the year before. Yeah, I mean, like the fact that we're already talking about the draft. And Tony, look, if you're talking about Matt Rule in his 2nd year as head coach, you could not have painted a more perfect season for him. It opened up with some fairly easy opponents. We had a good stretch. We played an NFC East division that, while they're tough, I mean, we all know what the NFC East is. There's always so much influx in that division between the Eagles and the Giants. We thought certain before this season started that we could check off a number of different W's on this schedule early on this season. And then looking at what we've been able to do in that time and just how badly, not only that we lost, but just how badly the Panthers lost to the teams that we were supposed to easily be able to check off as a W on our schedule. It just speaks so badly on Matt Rule, his entire philosophy, his entire ability to evaluate talent on his own football team, and frankly, his ability to get players playing for him. He has this preacher kind of bravado, but I don't know if anyone in that building is believing the gospel of Matt Rule, Tony.
You're listening to the C3 Panthers podcast with a live special broadcast covering Christian McCaffrey's season-ending ankle injury, where he's now been placed on injured reserve for a second time, ending his 2021 season. His season last year was curtailed by a shoulder injury, I believe it was at the time, that put him on season-ending IR. The Carolina Panthers have been backsliding for the last, I guess, 5 months or so, even longer, it feels like. And this news is just fitting to the story, I think, and apropos in so many ways. Would love for you to be a part of the show by commenting in the chat room. A lot of people here. Give them their shouts out. Did you shout people out earlier?
No, I did not.
Why don't we give some people some shout outs?
Yeah, man. Listen, the C3 podcast is a podcast for the fans, by the fans. We're happy to have you here reacting with us to this sad news. But listen, the C3 podcast is basically a time where you can have some therapy when your football team disappoints you. And all of the participants today that we're happy to have, our man C-Dog 1983, The Real Zero Chill, Hugo next up, ICP, John Jenkins, Karen Choi, Maddie Matt, Noah McKay, Panther Pickle, Peaceful Savage, Tony Dunn. We got the whole crew up in here, man. Whole crew. Panther.
There is a Noah McKay says this is so sad. There's some comments up there like that. But I almost feel like there's a sort of kind of just realism too that struck the fan base, like I was talking about with Matt Rule, or that's hard to be mean to people today when it's sad, but Matt Fool up there today.
We can still do it. You can
beaten puppy. Yeah, Matt Fool out there. It's like we know. It's here. This is it. So we appreciate that, and I appreciate you guys' support. Smash the thumbs up button. Be a part of the show. If you got a call, you can put it in 252-228-5098. I'll play it if we get them fast enough. I was thinking about this, Cody. I do think that this is ultimately a good thing for the fans. I know. How about that? That's mean.
Yeah, I came out of nowhere. You have my attention.
If we were truly going to lose out anyway, right? It's almost worse when there's that little bit of hope that shines at times and then you get it dashed. Like yesterday. Like I was actually better off a couple of weeks ago, like I said. And I just wonder if the Christian McCaffrey injury is like, here's I know I use crazy metaphors, dude. Right? Analogies. But this is like the Hiroshima of this season. And the after like Iwo Jima and like the island hopping of World War II in the Pacific, and the Americans kind of turned the tide, as they start to get Guam and roll on. I have to go pull up the order of the islands. I should know it off the top of my head that they hit. Is that the writing was on the wall, especially when they're able to kind of defeat and inflict a lot of devastation on the Navy, right? Like the Japanese Navy. And the problem is they didn't have the industry and production and resources really to just maintain over a long term
against the American military might.
Yeah, it's like the distance, the production, and all of this. And so it was kind of like, in retrospect, we could see the writing was on the wall. Like it would eventually, there's no way that they could really win it in the end. But that's like kind of been the controversy surrounding the use of the atomic bombs in that case. It's like you have to invade because they're not going to quit entirely. So do you use the atomic bomb and just accelerate this instantly? Or do we drag it out with the cost of lives and with an invasion?
So putting McCaffrey on, if I'm picking up what you're saying, putting McCaffrey on the IR is like the decision whether or not to do this terrible thing that has repercussions to it.
Yeah. This is the dropping of the bomb
Okay.
to the 2021 season. The 2021 season has now officially been nuked.
What chances do we have? I mean, I would like to say you're wrong, but I really can't. I mean, you're talking about now. I mean, okay, to be fair, we saw some good from Chuba Hubbard. We saw some good from Amir Abdullah, and say what you want. Now that Cam Newton is back, at least you have a quarterback that you're going to be able to run the RPO with, and defenses are going to have to respect the threat of Cam Newton's legs. So I think maybe that lessens the blow slightly. But man, it's like knowing how much we would ask Christian McCaffrey to do. And look, forget the receiver stuff, but the yards after contact. It seems like even behind this terrible offensive line, Christian McCaffrey would keep his feet churning and still get 4.5 yards per run. I mean, the dude is dynamic and electric. I think that's what's really going to hurt us the most. Now that we're not going to be able to have those easy yards on short downs like that. I mean, what chances do you think we have without him?
Look, and clearly, look, people are pointing out we've won more games with him, but without him than with him. That the defense has parts and pieces, right? But it just seems hard to me to is that it would need to be magical on its own right, even if Christian McCaffrey had a miraculous end of the season, was part of a dynamic turnaround when it comes to Joe Brady, Cam Newton, and this floundering or faltering Carolina Panthers team. So it would be miraculous with Christian McCaffrey. I think it's even more unrealistic or more realistic that it wouldn't happen without him.
Yeah.
And it just, I know there's all of these things that we've tried to hold on to, but his injury right here is emblematic of the Carolina Panthers season. Just like Christian McCaffrey's season, it really feels like the Carolina Panthers season is on injured reserve for the remainder of the season. And to point out some of those things, this is coming off. What was interesting, and I learned I wasn't paying attention to the starting lineup as closely as some other people, but we're talking about this good defense and this team that really would have to be heroed. Like, I mean, somebody would have to champion them, and Matt Rule would have to be part of that championship type turnaround to save this sucker. And you would think it would start with some sort of defensive production. Damn, Derek Brown didn't even start. And to hear him talk about Derek Brown in his press conference about how the lack of technique and this and that, and all of a sudden, what we thought was a constant, like, hey, Derek Brown's going to be this steady. This is y'all's pick.
Yeah.
Y'all picked him.
Yeah.
And now you're not, and it just really feels like they don't know what to do, so they'll do anything.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone's gotten the chance to listen to Matt Rule's press conference, he sounds like he's drowning, and he knows that he's drowning. I mean, it's bad. All the things that you and I have said about losing games that we clearly should have won and could have won, they cannot be lost on him. And then, Tony, I don't know how much you've been following this, but I think it behooves us to at least address some of the other chaos going on with coaches in college football right now, because I do think it's relevant to the conversation that we're having. Just recently, we saw Lincoln Riley go to USC to be the brand new head coach of the Trojans. So you have some big time names, some big time blue blood colleges looking to hire their next head coach. And it doesn't take long to start to hear Matt Rule's name pop up in rumors about potentially leaving to go to Oklahoma and be the new coach of the Oklahoma Sooners. A good buddy and friend of ours, listener of the podcast, Chad Morales, he lives in Louisiana, and he's saying a lot of people down there in Baton Rouge think that Matt Rule could potentially be the next head coach for the LSU Tigers. So
him and Joe Brady come as a package.
hey, dude, I wouldn't mind. Take them off of our hands. I think many people in the Panthers fan base would be happy about it to this point because I mean, let's be real, Tony Dunn. There is not a lot of love for our head coach and what he has done and is doing with this football team right now. We are so underwhelming. It's really you're starting to hear the rumors even in news media about Matt Rule potentially being on the hot seat even only after 2 years.
Let's go to some calls. The number's 252-228-5098. I'd like to hear what you're thinking about this news and what it means for the Carolina Panthers. And what do you think about Matt Rule and Joe Brady? Here we go with the calls. Let's see what we got first.
This is so sad. I mean, this is crazy. I can't believe this. I mean, this is depressing. I can't even watch this game. I can't watch the next game again. This is going to be too sad if we lose. And keep pounding, everybody. We will get through this. It's always a light at the end of the tunnel.
Look at that.
Keep pounding.
Oh, my man.
Don't you just love that kid? Hey, by the way, man,
yeah,
hold
he's
on.
awesome.
One thing, by the way, man, tell us your name.
So
Yeah.
Tell us your name the next time you call, man. We'd love to hear from you. You're always one of our best callers. And yeah, we hear you, buddy. I mean, Tony, it's depressing, man. And like I said, I don't want to be too hard on Christian, the player, because I think he's a great football player. And I really do feel bad for him. I wish that this wasn't the case. But it is. And here we are again talking about something that's very sad for all Panther fans.
All right, let's keep going.
Hi guys, it's Rich. I'm watching you live in my living room in
What's up, Rich?
in sunny Worthing. It's been ages. There's a good reason for that. Yeah, build the wall. Do you remember, Cody, about 3 drafts ago? Build the wall, build the wall.
I do,
All these
Rich.
draft mechanisms where we were trading back and drafting about 50 lines. It's come back to box, and it's horrible. I mean, if you see some of the people's breakdowns of what happens at the weekend, you're watching Elf lines like think he's on Dancing with the Stars as people go running and doing like a shoe shuffle or something. Oh, it's ridiculous. I mean, Cam didn't have a chance. No quarterback would have had a chance. I mean, it was ridiculous. But very interesting thing you picked up on years ago about DJ Moore's running. His route running is slack. It's all bends. There's no sharp cuts. I don't know whether it's getting worse or whether he's glossed over it or what's happening or whether they've all given up. But yeah, that's something to look at. I mean, his route running was bad at the weekend. I don't know about Robbie, although Robbie slipped slightly, has a few slips. Maybe that's in the game. Going forward, we've finally got a whole load of DBs we never had. There are some decent things. I love big snacks. My God, that shows how pointless it was getting Derek Brown when you can pick up people that fill it. I mean, we're filling our D-line with Brevion, Roy and Hoskins, who are like 6th and 7th rounders.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's just great to watch you guys in yet another slightly depressing season. Yeah, move CMC into the slot. Go from there. And
Not anymore.
Anyway, love the show as ever. I'm always listening in, guys, even if I'm not contributing as much. Interesting. My divorce came through today. So ironically, maybe we should be looking at divorce with Matt Rule. I'm all for that. All right. Thank you, guys. Bye.
I don't know if congratulations are in order when a divorce comes through. It feels like that was like a good thing.
Yeah. Well, first, love to hear from Rich. And Rich, let me tell you, brother, it makes my heart smile when somebody remembers my hot takes from 3 years ago on this podcast. But yeah, that was one of my criticisms of DJ Moore, is that he has a tendency to run these what we call banana routes. Instead of dropping your hips really fast and breaking to one side or the other, you kind of just run at an angle, that banana route. It kind of curves, and it gives the defender a much easier time staying in your hip pocket, giving them a chance to deflect the football, intercept the football. And it was one of my main criticisms of him. And to be honest, Tony, I had even given him credit because I thought that I had seen him improve a lot over the years in his route running since he originally came into the NFL. But it just seems to be kind of one of those old habits die hard kind of things for DJ Moore, where he just kind of runs these lazy routes. And that's why CK and I kind of got into a bit of a argument over it on the post game show. Is that, to me, if you're not giving your all on every route and doing your best to make separation, then to me, you're not truly a number one wide receiver. Because the number one wide receiver, a defense has to game plan for on every single down. And I just don't believe that's true of DJ Moore. And, I hate to say it like that because, again, we all want these players to be very successful. But, it's also kind of similar to like a Dante Jackson having these tendencies that don't die hard, or that do die hard, of trying to look at the quarterback instead of minding the defender in front of him, and when he's been burned a lot this season.
You're listening to the C3 Panthers podcast, covering Christian McCaffrey's injury unfolding or folding into injured reserve. The Carolina Panthers have placed Christian McCaffrey on injured reserve, and it's taken us really beyond the conversation of just Christian McCaffrey, the contract, and what this means for him in the context of the rest of the season, but what this means existentially for Matt Rule, the Carolina Panthers, and this being the atomic bomb to the 2021 season. Christian McCaffrey on IR. You can let us know your thoughts by calling in at 252-228-5098. Matt Fool, Phil Drew, Joe Frady, probably heading to Louisiana at this point. Man, this is some interesting. How quick it turns.
Yeah.
How quick it turns each and every week when it comes to kind of the expectations of the season. Let me see. That wasn't a 3-minute call? Let me see if this was Rich.
Yo, what's good,
Nope.
C3? This is JD54.
What up, JD?
What's up, man?
Yeah, man, I honestly don't know what to feel. With all the talent that's on the team, to me, I gotta look at the coaches, man. The coaching in general. It's ridiculous to have this amount of talent on the team, and the guys. The sign of a good coach is being able to get the best out of lesser talent, and this team has a lot of top tier talent, and the guys aren't performing to that level. It's not. I don't think it's a player issue. I was listening to P&P earlier, and they were talking about how Rule might have lost the locker room. I don't know what the hell is going on with this team, but I have a few scenarios on how this can work out. They either let Rule finish out the season, bring in a new OC, an experienced OC, and see if he could get the job done with somebody like that. And if he fails to, in this scenario, I would also say they need to bring Cam back, give him a full all season. Because I see a lot of people talk about draft QB. You can't trust this coaching staff to develop a rookie quarterback. Like, the best coach on the staff is Snow. And the defense, as well as the defense has been playing, if we had competent QB play earlier in the season, we'd won a few more games. The defense is starting to tail off. I think that's more so on coaches. I don't think they're trying to hear what rules say. But bring Cam back, get a new OC, run this thing one more time and see if Rule can get it done. If he fails to, then he's out. Option B would be to fire Rule after this season and bring in a head coach. Let Fitterer bring in a head coach that wants to work with all this talent. A guy who's not going to try to gut the roster and get his guys in. Someone who's like, yeah, the Panthers have a hell of a lot of talent. You bring me in and we can get it all in unison. We can get everybody pulling in the same direction. Because it seems to me Rule is not capable of leading men. He might be good at leading young men,
Yeah.
fucking kids practically, but he does not seem to be the type of coach that can lead professional athletes to this caliber. So I'm in the whole business with CMC.
All right, so we got a second part to that call in just a moment. This is being reported by both Joe Person and David Newton. They're told that per league source that Panthers running back Christian McCaffrey will not need surgery provided the ankle heals properly. Then follow-up tweet, boy, our David Newton. I love this dude. I'm telling you. Just listen to the wording of this. But
We might need to try and get him back soon.
I know. It says this, to add to that, if all heals properly, McCaffrey should be ready for the 2022 season. What a way of saying it. He doesn't need surgery. If it heals properly, he should be ready for 2022. If it doesn't, he won't, is what it's implying. Yet, like, what happens now? This sounds funny in some ways. Like, you're like, oh, David, you know how to push the button. But on the other hand, we've seen this with Cam Newton. That is, you try to rehab an injury where you had the option. Hey, J.C. Horn opted for surgery immediately. Is that let's certainly hope this is not something that like in 6 months they decide still, or 4 months.
It wouldn't surprise you, Tony. It wouldn't surprise, even though Vermillion's out the door. No more Ryan Vermillion as the Panthers head trainer, head doctor. But yet here we are again, potentially dealing with the same thing. What I'm confused about, Tony, is this something that can be fixed with surgery and they're just deciding to not in hopes that it will heal on its own? Or does this kind of seem to you like similar to kind of what you said about Cam Newton just not wanting to go under the knife, and maybe Christian McCaffrey being a little injury fatigued here with everything that he's put his body through? Maybe he just doesn't want to go under the knife and is just kind of crossing his fingers and hoping and praying that this is going to get better on its own.
Or it's not that bad, really. Or it's not really that bad. And then, he could have come back in week 16 or 17 and it wouldn't have mattered. So we are going to be looking for details, but I think those are the 3 storylines to follow, like the narratives. I mean, like if this is one of those books, have you ever seen those books where you get to choose your own ending or that type of thing? You get to choose your pathway.
Those books. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there are 3 different endings to this. There is, or at least forks in the road when it comes to the Christian McCaffrey ankle injury. Is this an injury that they're choosing intentionally in the best route not to have surgery? Is this, or is it one where surgery is an option? Then there's the other. So it's like, hey, is the surgery necessary or not? What's the appropriate decision? Then there's the other choice is you are Christian McCaffrey and you choose not to have surgery as an option, and you choose the rehab route because you are injury fatigued, like you said. And then that creates its own next choices down the road. Should you get I feel like I'm playing a video game. Should you get the surgery in 2 months? Should you continue to rehab or should you get the surgery? Cam did this with the foot, man.
Yeah.
He did it with his shoulder too. He did it with his shoulder. It's like, you can try to rehab this or you can have surgery. You can try to rehab this or you can have surgery. And both times he leant towards trying to rehab first. And right when you think it's going to work, I mean, it seems like it's getting better probably for a regular person. Is that like, hey, your shoulder is actually fine. It's just you're not an NFL quarterback. You work in an office or that's fine. But you're an NFL quarterback and you need it to be perfect.
Yeah.
The foot is walkable, but you're an NFL player. It's going to hurt when you play football in those crappy ass cleats or whatever. So later on, he's going to have to decide. Maybe he could have to make that decision down the road, or it's nothing. And the Panthers season is nothing. Those are the 3-story trajectory points, I guess, or forks in the road that we will be monitoring as we have to watch this miserable 2021 season going forward.
Yeah, man. And again, we're already back at that point where it's either the Carolina Panthers, all of a sudden, a miracle must be bestowed upon us, and we have to win every single game going forward, and magically win tiebreakers with the Washington football team, the Giants, the Eagles, all of them, and hope that we're able to sneak into the playoffs, or we're hoping that we lose every single game to acquire better draft picks. And we're at that time of the season. It sucks.
Neither is going to happen, sadly. Neither will happen.
Well, I wanted to put this up. The Real Zero Chill. He puts, we signed all this talent for what? And my question to you, Tony, is like, do you think there's any part of Scott Fitterer, that was maybe even being egged on by people like David Tepper? Hey, we have
or Matt Rule,
or we have a good football team. Go out, acquire Stephon Gilmore, get more talent. I mean, we were talking earlier, even after we lost to the Cowboys, we still thought we had a damn good football team that was going to make a legitimate playoff push. And now that we're not even close to it, is it a bad move for us to have made all those trades and give up a second and third round pick over this next draft?
That's the hardest part about this, is that there's no asset. We lost assets on top of these injuries and losing the season. 252-228-5098. We got a couple more calls.
Oh, what's good? C3 is JD. This is my second call. But what I was getting ready to say before the last one ended was people have to accept the fact that CMC is injury prone at this point. That's not to say he's an elite talent when he's healthy, when he's able to play. I know a lot of people are hollering about we need to trade him. That contract makes him pretty much untradeable. Best case scenario for CMC moving forward, well, for the team would be to have a running back by committee. I said it before. I don't think the offense is predicated on CMC. It's predicated on having a reliable pass catching option out the backfield. CMC is such an elite talent that what he can do with the ball is different than what other guys who can catch the ball out the backfield do. But I think Amir and Cuba can fill in decently for him. I don't know what the outlook of the rest of this season is. I at this current moment, I no longer have expectations of any degree. Like, I'm tuning in just to watch the games. Like, I'm genuinely just tuning in. Like, I'm a fan of football. The Panthers are my favorite team, so I'm just tuning in to watch the games. I can't even get up energy to be like, yeah, we got this one. And like I said before, it ain't on the players, for me at least. It's on his coaching staff.
We're definitely playing with house money at this point.
We spoke ad nauseum about the O-line issues, and then you have an O-line configuration that works, and they're still tinkering with it, still switching stuff up, and it makes no sense. Like, second guessing themselves. It's ridiculous. But yeah, what I'm hoping for, because we might as well start talking about next season. I'm hoping that, honestly, I'm hoping we have a new head coach and he knows what the hell he's doing. And I've seen people defend Rule and say that it's just year two. Well, with this amount of talent on the team, bro, like, you set us back when they set us back with this whole QB carousel thing.
Yeah.
Competent QB play earlier in the season, and we have a much different record. We're in a much different position. You guys wanted Sam Darnold. And Sam Darnold is who Sam Darnold is. It's wild. But yeah, man, I just want to call in, get my 2 cents. Appreciate what you guys do. Appreciate the show. Keep on it.
Man, we
Thank you, Justin.
love the support, man. Good call. I gotta feel like this really does. We had people in the chat room saying that yesterday was the end of the season for them. You know what I mean? It was like that's it. They can tell. This news coming immediately after that, where Cam Newton had like a 5 passer rating or something like that, and the defense gets shredded. Kind of got shredded. I mean, it did get shredded. I mean, he was right in his press conference that they, did enough in the first half defensively for the most part. The offense kind of put them in tough situations, but defense gets shredded, special teams get shredded, offense looks terrible. And then this news, it really just feels like kind of a final blow to Matt Rule. And it's just interesting to think of what it would take for it to not feel that way. So I'm not in the game of me trying to tell you exactly what's going to happen. I'm just going to try to tell you how I feel as a fan at this moment. Is that prior to this season starting, it would have been you've been hard pressed to have me feel or believe that Matt Rule would be fired. Right, is that it was just hard to envision a season that could be that bad.
Yeah,
where it would warrant not giving him a little bit more time to continue this process that you've already paid him to do, and you've embarked on this journey. But what are we in? Week 10, week 12? Going into week 12?
Yeah, I believe so. I'll pull it up.
Going into week 12, this right now, it feels like Matt Rule is on the verge, like on the precipice of being fired this season.
Yeah, we're going into week 13.
This news right here, Cody, just feels like a final blow, like the put this man to pasture type blow. And I know it's not correlated to him, but I'm trying to think of what it would take for me coming out of the bye week to feel differently. As who do we play? We play Atlanta coming out of the bye.
Yeah, we play Atlanta. Play Atlanta.
All right, so say the Panthers win against Atlanta. Does it feel much different? Like they would have to stomp the shit out of them, I think, for me to go, you know what? Like I would still be like, all right, let's see what happens next week. And then if they lost again, what is that, Buffalo around there? Somewhere.
Yeah,
like
Buffalo. We're on the road at Buffalo. 1:00 game in the afternoon. I mean, Tony, you're right. Did we? I don't think, and I'm pretty sure you could even find both of us saying this on our podcast and other podcasts. Is that even if this season would have to go off the rails bad for us to think that Matt Rule was genuinely going to be out the door. If I'm just being honest with you, Tony, if you're asking me how I feel now, if Matt Rule will be our head coach going into 2022, I don't think he is, Tony. And I know it's early
right now.
I know it's early. We still have 6 more football games left to be played. But man, I mean, this is really rough, and I hate to. It's like history is a flat circle, Tony. It really does repeat itself. I feel like here we are again. I think we need to rip the Band-Aid off. We need to rip
that.
off
That's what
the
you
Band-Aid.
said with Ron Rivera. I think this is. I think I've found the answer. To my question myself in my own head, just walking through my own brain, is I think we gotta beat Atlanta, and I think you win in Buffalo, and then you're like, all right, Rule's job isn't for sure getting fired, and then you pull off one win and you split with Tampa. That's the way he saves his job, maybe.
Even doesn't, dude. What do you think is more likely, Matt Rule doing that, or me taking it to the top of Mount Everest in my wheelchair? Because honestly,
That is messed up.
I'd
I
probably
mean, I
put
could
money on
see a
me,
world
dude.
where it possibly could happen. Look, is the Bills have been a little up and down.
Yeah.
The Falcons stink, and the Bucks might be resting players in the end. But I don't know if we'll ever get to that point. And this news really feels like you got kneecapped when you had one last, like you're trying to climb across the no man's land and you're already hurt and injured and dead or left for dead. You might make it, right? You got to go all the way across this forbidden land of bombs falling all over the place. And right when you get started, right when you muster the courage coming out the Christian McCaffrey news is like a sniper shot that hits you like right in the thigh and hits an
Right
artery.
in the ankle, right?
Yeah,
right in the ankle.
And right when you get started, like he's like, all right, this is already going to be a difficult. This is going to be a Mount Everest in the wheelchair like climb.
Yeah.
And then right when you get started, your wheelchair battery dies.
Or no, the surfers dropped my wheelchair while they're picking me up, trying to carry it. We tumbled the rest of the way down the mountain.
You didn't even get rolling yet.
Yeah, rolling the wrong way.
All right,
Like
let me go to the next call. 252-228-50.
Hey man, this is Ken. You know what? We're kind of stuck with C-Mac until the end of next year at the latest, and the end of next season at the latest, because that's when we could actually release him, cut him, and not have a massive cap hit. I'm going to look up that a little bit more, but you know what? There's not a lot you can do. Nobody's going to take him. I mean, I know people talk about trade. Nobody's going to take him. You're not even going to get a 6th-round pick for him. You're just not. Not this contract tied into
that would be insane.
His injury histories and stuff. But
it's
till the
contract.
I know he may not like it, but I would actually remove him as the starting running back next year. Or at least say you have to compete. You've got to prove that you can stay healthy. We need a reliable starting running back, not a guy who's
How
good but
with that,
often injured. I would make him play wide receiver more, and maybe even return and maybe third down a little bit. Now, if he proves in the middle of that next year that he can stay healthy, then okay, maybe. But that's just what I would do. But then of course I would do that with the assumption that Matt Rule's no longer here, because here's what I think is going to happen. I believe that David Tepper is just going to leave everything like it is until the end of this season. Then he's going to sit down with Matt Rule and he says, I want you to fire Joe Brady, and we're going to go out and get a offensive coordinator / experienced head coach. And
terrible.
That way, if things don't work out in your third year, I can let you go. And Matt Rule, and we're also going to remove your power over the roster and the draft. And when Matt Rule throws a fit about it, I believe Tepper's going to say, "Listen, you don't like to quit." Him. And I really believe that's how it's going to work out. Maybe I'm an idiot. I don't know. I've been called worse, but. Or maybe David Tepper don't really care and outright fires everybody at the end of the year. I believe we'll find out.
I think that's what's happening.
Y'all have a good one.
I think this news really makes me feel that way, Cody. Really makes me feel that it would be a miracle. Like the miracle it would take for the Panthers to make the playoffs. That's the same miracle I think it's going to take for Matt Rule and his staff to have the job to keep going forward. And that's it might not be right. It might not be the wise. Actually, I think though it would be unwise to kind of take that. Imagine this. What if we imagine if that was the scenario where Matt Rule is then fires an offensive coordinator, his staff, his offensive coordinator, goes and gets another one. Turns out that Matt Rule and then he goes out there and in his last ditch effort and opportunity to be the Panthers head coach, sits Christian McCaffrey willingly and makes him compete for the job. Like, I'll show you, I'll show you, NFL, how bad I can be, how terrible it can get. Like, imagine them trying to, it's like, good God. It just feels like in such a quick turn, Matt Rule isn't going to be the head coach of the Carolina Panthers going forward after the season.
I kind of think there's going to be one of those mutual parting of ways. I think one of our other callers already said it. There's a difference, and it's worth pointing out. There is a difference between coaching college football players and coaching grown men with family and babies that won't sleep at night and wives that are mad and family that are hitting them up for money and all these different things that entail being a professional football player in the NFL. And it's one thing to be a leader of students and, ultimately a bunch of young men that have to, still make the grades and do all the things that the NCAA requires them to do. But
now they're getting paid.
But yeah, they're getting paid in a way, and it certainly changes things. And I partly think that the NIL and Matt Rule having coached in the NFL, I think the college football landscape is right for Matt Rule if I'm being frank, I think he could go back to one of these big time programs and have a decent level of success. He's showing you what he's capable of doing in college football, building up lesser programs. Imagine if Matt Rule was the head coach of Oklahoma, if he was the head coach of LSU. I could, the whole point that I'm trying to make in even saying that,
I'm trying to imagine. I don't even know if it would be good, dude. I'm at this point.
The point that I'm just trying to make in even saying that is I see it as David Tepper is going to listen to this fan base, and we know he does. Without a shadow of a doubt, David Tepper knows the things that are being said about his football team. Okay? There's too much evidence for us to think otherwise. David Tepper hears that people want Matt Rule to be fired and how unacceptable this is. And then I think Matt Rule knows that, hey, I'm not quite cut out for the NFL. If I'm ever going to go back to college football, there's never been a better time to do it than right now with the kinds of jobs that are looking to hire a coach like me. So, yeah, that all of that leads up to me saying I just do not see a long-term future with Matt Rule under center. And to put the cherry on top of this statement, Tony, we've been talking about the most embarrassing losses in Panthers history. Well, we did put up an all-time terrible performance. Steve Palazzolo from PFF said Panthers had one of the worst offensive line performances of our lifetime yesterday.
I saw somebody, and I don't know if it was a grade. I don't know who put it up, if it was a PFF or whatever, but they gave Trent Scott a 0. A 0, dude.
Terrible.
I think you're right there when it comes to Matt Rule. As I agree, it just feels more and more like he's not going to have beyond a 2-year run with the Carolina Panthers. Right? And it's so strange for me to say that. I would have said to you before the season, we could have gone 2-14, and I still believe he's going to be the quarter. We win 4 games, and I think he'll be the coach. But I think how you lose is also important to just the record, is that like these aren't just games that we let slip away and that there's some real takeaways of we can get better and some things. It's like it is so disastrous that it's almost the record doesn't even reflect how bad it truly has been. And actually, I would argue that is the fact that we've won 5 games is a miracle in itself and probably shows you how easy that front half of that schedule was and how misleading a lot of these stats are in some cases. And, you can twist and turn everything, but something feels off here. So I don't feel like the second year or the third year is really going to exist for Matt Rule. And I do think you're right. Is like, how do you walk out of this if you're Tepper in the best possible light for your organization and for yourself, who's also part of this mistake? And also, you saving face and Matt Rule saving face is probably mutually beneficial.
Yeah.
So him gracefully exiting where like you both mutually part ways for one to taking on a job here. Thank you for your time. This isn't necessarily this isn't me firing, nor is this you quitting. This is new opportunities for new people. That's kind of how I expect them to spin it in that case. Or it's going to be mutually assured destruction when it comes to Tepper. And it's just like, you know what? This dude sucked. It's over. We're done. Good luck and good riddance if you want him at LSU. So I think how it's going to turn. Cody, the one thing I don't, just irritates the stew out of me is how are these people such high profile candidates for big time jobs, and they're doing so bad at the moment that their name is being fielded. I know that he took Temple and restored or bounced back the program. I know that he had some success at Baylor, but it's not like he won 30 championships. I would argue that Steve Spurrier had more success at the college level and before he went pro. And like I could say, all right, well, let's bring back the old ball coach and he can coach college. I don't even know if I'd be that confident in Matt Rule and a big time program like LSU for a place that doesn't have much patience in their own right.
Yeah, and LSU is a unique situation, but I think it goes back to that thing I said earlier. There really is a stark difference between being the head coach of a college football team and a professional football team. And also the thing that lends to that, Tony, is potentially the greatest college football coach to ever live. Nick Saban basically failed at the NFL. To be a head coach,
try. Yeah, I don't know
to be a head coach on the actually, it's not even that he failed, but it's that an opportunity like Alabama came knocking for him, and instead of continuing to grind away, trying to turn around a professional football team, and he got to see how hard that is firsthand. All of a sudden, a blue blood college football program like Alabama comes available, and then Nick Saban just pounces on it, and look how that turned out to him, or how it turned out for him. I would say the same thing with Matt Rule. I mean, while he is nowhere near as tenured as Nick Saban was, even before he joined the Dolphins, he does have that name recognition connected to turning around Temple and Baylor, and it happened in a relatively short amount of time. So yeah,
I feel like
understand.
he would fit Oklahoma more than LSU.
Yep. And Baylor was in the Big Ten, so was Oklahoma.
Yeah, I just think that, man, is that when I see LSU, they fired Les Miles, and that dude was winning 10 games or whatever a season. It felt like he just couldn't beat Alabama. Wasn't it Les Miles that they had like before Orgeron and stuff like that?
Yeah, they had Les Miles, and they all won championships at LSU.
Yeah, I mean, these guys it just doesn't feel like the LSU is the most patient college collegiate organization that's going to give like I can't wait for Matt Rule to do the process, the brand. It's about building it the right way speech. That'll last with them for a season, maybe 2 at the max. Oklahoma feel like a better fit. And I do agree, like, hey, is that there are different skill sets. I'm just surprised. I think college would be far more difficult, to be honest, than it is with pro football. And I wonder, is the scrutiny different at the pro level versus the college level from the fan base? And it really feels like the fans and at the pro level that we tend to be a little bit more results oriented. And it's like a democratic process from the grassroots. Like we feel like we have a say on for this team. And then for our college teams, at least for the college teams, it feels like we have to like owe a little bit more allegiance to the school name. I don't know. It just feels different to where we can come out and call for firing these guys as quickly in the pros. I don't think them, I don't know. I don't know if it's because it's billions of dollars and we know it's for money, so we feel more comfortable criticizing players and the performance of people. The college thing just seems a little bit more sentimental.
Yeah, I definitely see what I mean. It's a different kind of atmosphere. I mean, college football is huge, though. I mean, especially in
It
the
is.
South.
No, it is.
Especially in the South. And again, I think that ties into it. Whenever you're able, like, let's say you're Matt Rule, say you end up going to LSU. LSU is such a powerful brand that no matter who the head coach is, okay, if I commit to LSU, we're going to have the best facilities. We're going to be playing SEC football. It's not hard to recruit the best players to come play for you when you're at one of these bigger name schools. And then instead of Matt Rule kind of being left with whatever the a
Those
general
guys left
manager,
over.
but yeah, and instead of having to just kind of be okay with whatever the general manager decides to draft him, as the head coach, you're basically the head recruiter. You can walk into the best player in the country and say, "Hey, come to LSU. Come help us win a national championship." And it's just the turnaround to me, the turnaround to making a college football team a playoff contender is much easier than doing it on the professional level.
God,
And I think that's part of what we're seeing.
I think it's so much more complicated, but I'm also coming from a small school kind of mentality, like a Temple type team trying to take on the Titans, right? And what that means. So you got to be great in the X's and O's. You got to be great in the recruiting. It just seems like such a difficult thing. But when you are, it is at least the one thing in college that is cool for being a coach is like it's better to be a coach of a behemoth. Like it'd be better to be an average coach of a behemoth school than a great coach of a school that doesn't have that power like a LSU. Like you can be, and if you think Lincoln Riley was offensive coordinator at East Carolina, then goes Oklahoma. I mean, like there's some kind of storylines to see how these guys have to move up the chain. It's like the food order, the food chain. LSU is like the shark, the great white shark. Alabama is the great white shark of the ocean, while
Florida,
like a tuna. But maybe this to me is like, does that mean that Matt Rule and his staff needs an advantage of just better players than everybody else? Like you can't do it on the regular scale.
Well,
all difficult questions.
Derek, and we didn't really talk about this a lot in Tuesdays or Sundays post-game show, but Derek Brown was benched.
That's what I was mentioning to you earlier in the show today. Isn't that crazy? He didn't start.
So that the fact that happened, that we do have a lot of talent, and that the talent can't even perform to the level that we expect them to, Tony, every single arrow points back to Matt Rule. So to kind of evolve this conversation a little bit, I want to switch it to two more things, right? Okay, so one, let's go back to Christian McCaffrey for a second. A lot of people in the chat room, and even Jeremy Igo has now put out that a potential solution to this, especially if we're looking at a scenario where we're not going to be able to trade Christian McCaffrey very easily because of the contract connected to him, is there some sense to moving Christian to be a full-time wide receiver and let him be like a souped up Julian Edelman 2.0 and potentially put him at a position where the physicality is much less taxing on his body, yet you still get that shifty, dynamic, fast, yards after catch kind of playmaker that Christian McCaffrey brings to the field. I'm wondering if maybe that would be a good idea for us to implement with Christian, regardless of who our coach is going forward. What do you think about that?
I always assumed that was going to be the natural trajectory of things, right? Is like moving him from running back, is down the road that I could see that. I didn't expect for it to happen right now. And especially when he's just so effective as a running back, right? Is like, so I would, yeah, I mean, I'm fine with that in one way, but it just seems like once you start getting these injured, nicked, who was it? We were talking with we were talking with somebody. Is like once you get that one injury, I heard LeVar Arrington talk about this too recently. Is you get that one injury and you start compensating for it, right, a little bit, and then that leads to another injury. It's like once you get this kind of bug, is that they just keep going on and playing off of each other. At this point, is like I don't even know if that's going to even matter. I mean, I do think it will, like it could help, it might, but he could also be healthy and be a running back, you would think. Other guys have done it for years and years and years, but he's not able to do it, or not yet, or as is. So, yeah, I mean, I don't see this being like an end to his football career, and I don't believe that his football career will end as a running back. I didn't assume that we were just going to exclusively use him as a wide receiver going forward. But hell, I mean, you might as well. If that, like, I mean, if you don't have any, if you just want to put somebody else to get beat up out there, then yeah, man, you better put Chuba Hubbard and let him get bludgeoned to death behind no offensive line. It really, I guess, is that will it matter at this point, and will it matter soon enough for it to matter?
I mean, it's certainly a good question, Tony. You want to know how bad the Carolina Panthers truly are? Oh Jesus! Can't even go to church without being embarrassed.
Oh my god!
We have. I'm assuming it's Jesus Carrillo in the chat room saying he's embarrassed to go to church. Yeah, it's bad, man. It's bad. That's when you know the Panthers have fallen on hard times.
It's also real sad to see the potential kind of vanishing of what could be a great player. And not him, as I don't know if we're at that point to where I don't think he's going to have a career going forward. But like, look, is Cam Newton injury seemingly interrupted what was the trajectory of a sensational career? I'd hate to see that happen for Christian McCaffrey. And how long will it take for that not to be the case? Is that how long will it take for Christian McCaffrey to be used as a wide receiver for me to trust that this isn't going to happen again in the future? How long will he have to make it? And will he be with the team by the time that narrative plays out? I don't think he'll be with Matt Rule. And you got to wonder, that would be interesting to see what the next coaching staff, the third coaching staff, has to do, how they deal with this, because this is something that Ron Rivera, I think, faced in his latter time too.
So, I know we're really looking out in front with this one, but can I tell you what my move would be if I'm the general manager, if I'm Scott Fitterer, what I do going forward?
Tell me.
So I haven't made up my mind if I would fire him now or if I would wait till the end of the season. But being that I know who I already have in mind to be the head coach, it might actually benefit just to cut ties with Matt Rule now. But this is what I would do. I would go get Eric Bieniemy to be the new head coach of the Carolina Panthers. Because for one, he would be the offensive coordinator on our football team. And even if we did have another offensive coordinator, which we definitely would, we always know that at a moment's notice, our head coach is going to be able to pick up the play sheet and call plays, much like he does with the Kansas City Chiefs right now. Two, we wouldn't have to worry about our play caller having to up and leave us the moment that we do finally get a franchise quarterback.
Or have success.
Or have success around Eric Bieniemy. Number two, I would sign Cam Newton to at least a 2-year deal. So that way it is a message, hear me out. It is a message to the coach that, hey, you have someone that you're going to be able to build your offense around in the interim, but we are going to be doing everything in our power to get in a brand new quarterback should Cam not be able to go. Because, by the way, maybe, with a chance to be with the Carolina Panthers the entire offseason, have OTAs, be able to play football, and actually do all the things that build up to playing an NFL season, maybe Cam Newton under an Eric Bieniemy offense might not look too bad. But even if it doesn't, you have your head coach, and then you can continue to try and build the offensive line and potentially get another quarterback of the future and try and build this thing to go soon and be a viable contender in the NFC South. That's what I would do, but I'm crazy.
I'm okay with the Bieniemy talk if that's what you think is the right thing. I'm just not okay with this idea that extending Cam is really going to be helpful to anybody. Not yet. I don't know. I'm going to have to see a little bit more. I'm going to have to see some improvement towards the end of the season. But here's the money thing. It's almost like this is no matter what, whoever you get, like that bridge is going to still be awful right there. Likely. So I agree with everything until the sign Cam Newton to extension. I need to see a little bit. I'm not talking about signing no Cam Newton to extension. We had a 5 quarterback rating or whatever.
What would be our better option?
The better option would probably be to go ahead and recognize that you're bringing in a staff to clean up what quickly turned into a disaster. And I would think it would be fire sale time for a season. And the option would be this.
But for quarterback, if you didn't bring in Cam, what would be your answer at the quarterback position?
League minimum. I mean, I'm trying to give somebody a 1-year deal. A 1-year deal on a as cheap as possible, and you know what is, if he don't work, then you put in Sam Darnold. You know what I'm saying. I don't know what it would be, but it doesn't matter who it is. Like no matter like what it should be is nobody that cost you anything. Shouldn't cost you any money. Shouldn't cost you this. Is that? And I doubt, at least from everybody who hyped up this last draft class as the best quarterback class in a long time, I have not heard any hype about this draft class. In fact, I hear all people, the top prospects, people already shitting on right away. So there's no second. So I don't even know if you can get their quarterback in the draft next year. So you're talking about 2023, either drafting a quarterback because you had a 2022 season that was a nightmare, an expected nightmare, right? What really was supposed to be us last year. What's actually turning into us this year. But now that you're gonna have a new coach and all of this. So I mean, I think in 2023 you start eyeballing either a free agent or then you're drafting then. And in the meantime, you're working to acquire as many draft picks as you can possibly get and get out as many many contracts as you can and avoid signing any big ones until you got to. I mean, I think signing Cam Newton means next year's bleak anyway.
I mean,
that's what I would say.
About a league minimum vet, then in my mind, it might as well be Cam Newton.
If Cam will do it for that, then I'm okay. I mean, that's fine, I guess. But then I don't want to just run him into the ground too. I mean, I expect whoever the next coach comes in here. I don't know if he's going to be able to be win. I mean, you think he's going to go out and win 5 games his first season after half of this team's leaving?
We're having to set our sights back to realism, and that if we are indeed talking about life after Matt Rule already, then yeah, we're not going to hire a brand new head coach and then be a contender the very next year. You have to build with the long term in mind. And
a Gardner Minshew. I take a Gardner Minshew maybe.
See, none of those. Like, okay, but everything that you just
It's like
said.
Cam. I mean, they might as well be Cam at this point. As somebody that's not going to win any games, probably.
Also, I think another thing is a lot of players. Say what you want. Eric Bieniemy has a very respected name amongst NFL players. So any quarterbacks that were to be on the move, they would potentially want to come and play with Eric Bieniemy too. But I think first and foremost, and this has been the Achilles heel of Matt Rule and Scott Fitterer, even though it's more on Rule, I would say, than Fitterer, is the two biggest concerns on the football team we didn't fix. And when we tried to, we made the wrong decisions. And that's the quarterback and offensive line. Literally the two most important position groups in football, your QB room and your offensive line room. We did not take the proper steps necessary to secure high-level talent at those positions. And
100. 100.
It'll be the death of them.
It is. And it seems like it has become the death of them, right? Is that regardless, they're not going to see the fruits of picking J.C. Horn, missing this year. The fruits of Sam Darnold turned out to be rotten. And the offensive line turned out to be shitty as always. And you knew it. You knew you had a car that had, I'm tired of these. I'm not even making a metaphor on this. Is that you knew the mess was broken. You even went out and picked people that had dubious track records, to say the least, and tried to run it with them. You rolled this hand. You did it. You guys did it. You did this. And sadly, what's interesting and sad about it to me is that, again, I go back to the beginning of the season. There's no way I saw this coming, to the nature that Matt Rule would not see a third season. And the only way it turns out for this train wreck to happen would be to intentionally drive it off the rails, where every decision, it'd be like, like you swerve to miss the deer, and then you swerve to miss the turtle, and then you just drove off a cliff. You know what I'm saying? Like your decisions, your reactions.
Something similar just happened to the Bat Daddy, did it not?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I did think this was important. It was interesting. Is in Matt Rule's press conference this morning, he was asked about some comments that he made yesterday about Cam Newton being the starting quarterback, and that he basically said, "Yeah, I don't see why he wouldn't be." He clarified today. He said that what he meant was he's not making any decisions before watching the tape. And he said this: as soon as I saw that headline come out, I knew they were going to run. They misinterpreted what I meant. And I was like, oh, of course. You saw the headline. Now you realize that you probably shouldn't have said that. All right. Did you have another point you wanted to make? You said evolve the conversation. The first was about
it was Christian McCaffrey changing position and what you would do going forward. And I think my dream scenario would be to get Eric Bieniemy here, so that way once we did finally get our quarterback of the future, we would have a really good, brilliant offensive mind who has proven himself. I mean, literally talk about the opposite of Matt Rule. I mean, you talk about a college coach, who had a level of success. Eric Bieniemy has a Super Bowl ring as an offensive coordinator. He's been to an AFC Championship game, has a Super Bowl ring, lost another one, and it's looking like the Chiefs are going to be a contender again this year. So that would be what I would do. Again, it's just so early right now, and I think that you and I, Tony, you never know. We might need to prepare ourselves for potentially having to do another one of these impromptu live streams later this year
or this week at this rate.
Yeah.
I want to say this is I am going to announce officially my top 3 candidates for the head coaching job of the Carolina Panthers.
Oh, okay.
In no specific order. Actually, in a specific order.
Okay.
First, I want to be different than Cody. I don't want to just go Bieniemy because that would be too simple. And I actually think this would be a good name. And even if we were to go with your scenario of bringing back Cam for another year, I think this name would make a lot of sense. Greg Roman, offensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens, has had an immense amount of success with Lamar Jackson, developed him into a growing passer, budding star, knows how to operate with a running quarterback, and probably could get the most out of Cam, about as much as anybody. Greg Roman, my number one. Number two, I'm gonna go. Also, I like. What about the Doug Peterson? I like the story of a coach that's had some success in the NFL that seemed to be a good head coach, at least what I like. I mean, it looked like it from the outside, but I didn't follow as close as you can. And a kind of a bizarre relationship that unfolded between the GM, the ownership, and the coach that got contentious surrounding Carson Wentz.
Where is he at right now?
Nowhere. I think he's like
nowhere. Okay.
I don't think he's doing anything. I might be wrong on that. So I like some other people. Byron Leftwich is one name that people like, and
yeah. No, go ahead.
This would be poaching from a division rival, getting Byron Leftwich to take on, and then I also am Bieniemy. That's my coaching search right now. Those are the candidates I'm initially interested in right when I look at the stack, and I haven't looked through all the applications.
So this guy right here, I know you don't know him, or you might, but this is the defensive coordinator for Clemson, for the Clemson Tigers. And let me tell you, man, this guy right here, it would be bittersweet for me because obviously I want him to be the DC for my Tigers. I'm a big time Clemson fan, but he is one of the brightest minds, especially on defense, in all of football. I mean,
don't want a defensive coach anymore. Don't want one. I want an offensive one.
But look at the guy for the Chargers. I think Brandon Staley is his name. He was a defensive coordinator.
Oh, was he? I just like the way he talks. I just like the way he talks. He also sucked this year too.
Yeah, but he's he is. But I wouldn't say the Chargers suck. They're kind of like a lot of teams that are kind of up and down right now. But I would say that he is definitely, easily one of the best and brightest defensive minds in all of football. That guy could generate pressure with a piece of paper and nothing else. I mean, that guy would love to have him. But yeah, it's just sad that we're even having to entertain this kind of stuff. Already talking about a new head coach. And now it's like we're in that we don't get to rest because now we're always going to be on edge. But now, Tony, I feel like if this continues to get worse, like we're going to be waiting for that news to drop that Matt Rule is going to be out the door.
You know, like we'll kind of round this out with this part is that we are not there's no mean the time to celebrate as Christian McCaffrey's been placed on injured reserve. It does feel like a Nagasaki or Hiroshima type blow to the 2021 season and what could be the death blow for Matt Rule. So you don't want to celebrate someone's stress, their failure. But I will remember that I do try to remember this is when I'm picking apart every moment of what these guys say at these press conferences, when I'm talking about their lives and their families and their careers and such easy strokes on the internet. I do have to just remember this guy's a millionaire. He's a millionaire and he signed up for the pressure. He signed up for people follow him. He wouldn't be a millionaire if we weren't doing podcasts as discussing his future, potentially Matt Rule with LSU, Matt Rule potentially out, and new guys like Greg Roman and Eric Bieniemy in the future of the Carolina Panthers there. So I will comfort myself in saying that guy's probably under a lot of stress. You think it's daunting, then stressful for us to continue to automatically be thinking about this, the pressure that we're facing with this looming situation. You know that pressure exists for Matt Rule. If you feel bad, Matt Rule, just check your bank account on me. That's what I would do if I was you. You want to feel bad? Look at my bank account. You want to feel bad? Look at my bank account. You want to feel good about your life? Look at your bank account. I'm sure from what it sounds like, worst case scenario, land on your feet at Oklahoma. All right. I think that's enough on this. For the meantime, we got the tomorrow night where, like you said, it feels like we're live every day, and I don't got a problem with that. I love hanging out with you, Cody. Sad news today. Sad news, but cathartic, therapeutic, as one caller said last night. This was my Hiroshima today of the season. The writing was on the wall and the nuclear bomb was dropped. And it seems like this was a decision that's going to have some fateful consequences.
Yeah, but I feel like we kind of already cleared out the blasting zone because we knew that this bomb had a high potential to be dropped right on our heads.
Get the women and children out.
Yeah, so I think maybe we were able to mitigate the damage a little bit. That's representative of Panthers PTSD that we have. We expect this kind of trauma and torment to end our season like this. But yeah, listen, we appreciate everyone for coming hang out with us, man. This is your C3 therapy session where we can all grieve together, man. Grieve what our season could have been, might have been, should have been, would have been, could have been. But you know what? We'll do it together. We'll share this pain together here on the C3 Panthers podcast. Real quick, 113 people watching, 73 thumbs up. Hit those like buttons. Hit the subscribe. We've already passed 3,000 subscribers. We're continuing to climb and grow and build C3 Panther Nation. We want you to be a part of it. As Tony alluded to, we're always uploading content of some sort. So hit that notification bell for every single time that we decide to drop and bless your lives with some content about the C3 Panthers podcast and these Carolina Panthers.
Tomorrow night show, Tuesday night, 9 p.m. We want you to be a part of it. Call in at 252-228-5098. You can find the work on iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher. Afterwards, it's syndicated on everywhere, wherever you get your podcast. Wednesday night, we'll do the debate check. We'll do C3 Debate My Take. Man, we're going to have to do the beat check. I thought it was going to be a week off with it, but the beat is hot, and we're going to try to line up someone for that. I'll be working on that immediately. And Friday Free For All, this is your place to have your voice heard when it comes to Panther Nation and to help Panther Nation survive and grow together. We appreciate the support. Like Cody said, smash the thumbs up button, subscribe. Cody, let's go ahead and get out of here. We'll see these cats tomorrow night. Hopefully not earlier.
Until then, ladies and gentlemen, keep pounding